Here's the first point for us to remember about rules. Every upset you've ever had in your life with another person has been a rules upset. Now think about what I just said. Every time you've been upset with another human being, the upset has not been about the other human being. It's been an upset about the differences you have between your rules about how things should or must be, how people should or must be treated, how someone should or must communicate to you, how that's different than somebody else's rules. Now see if you buy that idea. I think you're going to find it's accurate if you look at your real life. Think of the last time you're really upset with somebody. Now I know you've never been upset with anybody, but if you once had been upset, let's think of such an example. Now, as you think back at that situation, what were you really upset about? You say, well, I was upset with a person. No, you weren't upset with a person. You were upset about an issue. You're upset about something that was done or not done. People get very upset when their rules get violated. See, some people have rules about respect. And the rules for respect are, if you respect me, you never raise your voice. But they may be in a relationship with somebody who has a rule that says, if I respect somebody, I share with all my feelings and all my emotions exactly how I feel in the moment with all my intensity, because otherwise I wouldn't be respecting you, I wouldn't be telling you how I really feel, I wouldn't be being truthful. Can you imagine how these people feel when they get together? By the way, this was my wife and I when we first got together. We had radically different ideas of rules. Why? I grew up in an environment where we got a lot of pain if we weren't honest, if we didn't tell the whole truth, if we didn't express ourselves. Trying to walk out of the room without finishing something, boy, that wasn't allowed. That was massive pain. And even though it didn't feel good to have to say how you felt in the moment, because you knew you might get in trouble, you had to communicate it. Becky grew up in a family where the rules were quite different. The rules were real clear. If you don't have anything good to say, you don't say anything at all. And if you have respect for someone, you never raise your voice. And if somebody ever raises their voice to you, the only way to keep your own self-respect is get up and leave the room. Can you imagine how these two rules clashed in a personal relationship? We drove each other almost crazy. We almost didn't get married because of this. Not because we didn't love each other, but because we had such conflicting rules. See, rules determine where we go, who we are, who we can even be with, whether we're happy or sad. I'm curious, what does it take for you to feel like you're respected by someone? What are your rules? You may say, well, I don't have any rules. Oh, yes, you do. You may not be aware of them consciously, but you do have them. So think for a second. What does it take for you to feel like you're respected by someone? Well, you might say, well, they need to not ever, make me wrong, or they need to respect my opinions. Well, how do you know if they respect your opinions? If they just sit there and listen? For some people, that's all it takes. For other people, they have to actively agree. Some people do not feel respected unless someone agrees with their view. Some people, I say, what does it take for you to feel respected? They say, well, I have to feel like this person agrees with me. Isn't that interesting? What's their chances of feeling disrespected by someone? Very good, because lots of people have different views other than yours. So we have to make sure that we're aware if our rules are appropriate or not. And if we're going to work with other people, we want, when we get in the game, to understand other people's rules, because there's a good chance we're going to have some differences. The more we understand what a person's rules are, what their standards are, what they really need to feel fulfilled, then we can work on meeting those needs, and vice versa. We can teach them what we need to feel fulfilled. Let's take a look at how rules impact even more personally in a relationship. Let's look at the emotion of love. What are the rules you have for knowing somebody loves you? Well, somebody's rules, if you ask, what does it take for you to know somebody loves you? They say, well, if they smile at me. Some people have to be told they're loved or they won't believe you love them. Did you see the movie Ghost? There's an interesting thing about rules in the very beginning. The main characters are played by Patrick Swayze and Demi Moore. And early in the film, Demi Moore turns to him and she says, I love you. And he turns back to her and says, ditto. And she finally gets upset about it. And she says, you never say you love me. That bothers me. I don't feel like you really love me, And he says, I love you, but I just don't say it. That's not what it's about. I'm not about saying I love you. Everybody says they love you and they don't mean it. Here are two people and they're having an argument already. What are they arguing over? They're arguing over their own personal standards on what it takes for them to feel loved. Some people don't know they're loved unless you touch them a certain way. And you think that they know you love them because you tell them all the time. It won't do it, not at the deepest level of love. So the value of realizing this first distinction, that almost everyone you meet is going to have rules that are different than you have, is that with that awareness, you can now dig in and find out what somebody's rules are. And now you can meet their deepest needs. See, if you love someone and you say, I love you, but that's not what they need, their rule is they have to be touched, and you don't touch them, then you're not going to give them what you really want to give them. In fact, if you want to make someone feel like they're loved, whose rules do you use to decide how to make them feel loved? Well, you and I both know the answer. We use our own rules. So if you're the kind of person that, wants to be hugged, what do you tend to do? You tend to hug that person. But maybe they need to hear, I love you, and you're just hugging them. And they need to hear it in a certain tone of voice, and you don't duplicate that because that's not what you need. I mean, the classic thing I hear in personal relationships all the time is, especially when they've gone through threshold or the relationship's about to end, and I'll hear the man or woman say, I gave them my whole life. I gave them everything. I gave them everything that I could possibly give them as a human being. And invariably, you know what really is true? They gave them everything except what the other person really wanted and needed. They met their own rules. They didn't meet their partner's rules. And if you want someone else to feel loved, you can't do it in your way. You got to do it in the way that meets their needs. I'll never forget, Becky and I were in the south of France. And one day, I came out of the shower and she handed me a towel. And I dried off, and I started to dry my hair. And then she handed me the hairspray. And quite honestly, I didn't really notice. I was like, in deep thought, thinking about what I was going to be doing next. And she turned to me and she said, you don't realize all the things I do for you. You don't realize how much I love you. When I give you the hairspray, that means I love you. When I give you the towel, it means I love you. Well, you know what? I'm real appreciative if she gives me the towel and the hairspray, but quite honestly, I just as easy get it myself. It's not one of my rules for love. To me, it doesn't take any thought for me to grab the towel or to reach for the hairspray. So quite honestly, I didn't value it the same way she did. But for her, that's a rule of love. Now, check this out. I don't usually hand her the towel or the hairspray. Guess what? That means that she feels a little like she's missing out. In fact, she said, boy, I would just feel so loved if you would give me a towel and you would think to have the forethought to hand me the hairspray right when I'm done drying my hair and give it to me at that moment. I said, you gotta be kidding me. That would make you feel loved? She said, yeah. I said, that doesn't make you feel loved. What makes me feel loved is when you say, I love you in that certain tone. When you say, I love you tone. And I just melt. That makes me feel it. Or when we hug and stuff, but not hairspray. She goes, yes, it is. That's love. So I started laughing. I said, okay. And sure enough, now I catch her. If I'm in there and I see her in the shower, I hand her the towel and I said, this means love. And every time she hands me the towel now, I grab it and I say, I know this means love. And I give her a big kiss. And what it allows us to do is allows us to appreciate people and understand people's behavior and connect closer with people. But realize, if you've got an upset with somebody, that upset is about breaking somebody's rules. Check this out, though. Have you ever been upset with yourself? Of course you have. Why? Why were you upset with yourself? Answer's simple. You broke your own rules. You've got rules for yourself about how you need to be, how you need to treat people, how much you need to grow, how much you think you need to earn, the kind of difference you need to make in the world. And when you feel like you've broken one of your own rules, I don't care how simple it is. Maybe it's like you're not to overeat, but you do. You give yourself pain. Now, some people give themselves a little pain because it's not that big a rule for them. For some people, certain rules that we break them, we beat ourselves up for days. Haven't you ever done that? I know I've been guilty of it. And it isn't always bad. Sometimes it's good to get a little pain because then you don't want to do that again. But the point is, if you ever feel angry or upset with yourself or someone else, realize it's a rules upset. And you know what that'll help you to do? You'll stop making the person wrong. And you'll say, you know what? We just have a difference in rules. My expectations are that if you respect me, you do this and this and this. I know those aren't your rules. Tell me what your rules are. Let me understand them. Can we make a deal? Would you be willing to do this? Because it would make me feel respected. And I'd be willing to do that for you. You can change a relationship just by getting clear on the rules and be willing to play by them.